The truth shall set you free. This is what Jesus said, right? And this has been a motto, a phrase that somehow is, just passes through our minds. But in fact, this is what salvation means. This is the path to salvation, right? Not only in there's another salvation, of course. The redemption comes in two phases. We know that, right? First is our first has to do with the end, and then the other is our restoration to God, right? And even those words, right? Those words, when you say restoration, being restored to God, this has been memified. There's an idea to these words that we get from years of indoctrination in the church, right? There's nothing wrong with church. The problem with it is the concepts in the church are somehow muddled, right? So when Jesus said the truth will set you free, and he said that that's why he was there in front of Pilate, this death, this torture that he was about to endure, and his very existence on earth was to testify to the truth. The truth of what, right? The truth of God. You know that. So we have a lot of evidence about this in even in the New Testament. The apostles wrote that the death of Christ, for example, ended the law or the Torah. It was the end of the Torah or the law from Yahweh. And some people obsess about this idea about sacrifice, right? And they think about this sacrifice as a blood sacrifice, like it's a cultic thing. It's like something you offer a blood sacrifice, like an animal or whatever, to satisfy a deity. That's what they always want to think of this. But this is not actually a Christian thing. This is not what happened. This is a Roman understanding. And somehow we have attached, when you read the New Testament, there's a lot of phrases there, a lot of things. Like Jesus, when did make an acceptable sacrifice and such. Those terms is far from our understanding of what those things really mean, because we don't do that anymore. We don't offer a sacrifice, right? And in the old days, those could have meant something else. Like, for example, you offered the best of your crops. So instead of harvesting, or instead of let's say your cattle, right? So instead of having the opportunity to multiply to create a batch of cattle that have better genetics, you're going to offer the good portions of your cattle to this God, meaning you're doing a sacrifice, right? You're giving up your chance of a better life in order to prevent some kind of wrath from happening to you, right? For example, that's one way to look at sacrifice. And there's another thing, right? It's a covering, right? Or asking for a deity to fulfill a need for protection, or to curse someone, right? So there's a lot of ways to understand it. But in Christ, it was a different thing, right? He did sacrifice himself. What does that mean, right? He came here knowing that he's going to die. So he was sent by his father, our father, knowing that he's going to die. And that's not exactly, that's not even what really happened, right? We know that Jesus said that he lays his life down willingly and he can take it back. He has been given the power to take it back, his life. So this act of dying is not really the point. The dying, the blood and stuff, is not really the point. It is the statement, what this means. The dying is just the action, but what it says is the most important thing, right? So when he subjected himself to the law, because he was born under the law, right? That's what we know, reading from the Bible. That he was born in the flesh under the law, right? So that statement is, it just passes our mind. We don't understand what this means. But now we can see it, right? That he subjected himself under the law, and then what happened? He died under the law, right? Nailing the law to the cross with his flesh, right? What does that mean? So it means that this law, he lived it perfectly, right? But when you study the law, it has its promises and punishments, right? It has a punishment and reward system, right? But then there was an error. Something went wrong. His life, he lived under the law perfectly, sinless, but he was not reaping the benefits of it while he was alive. Then ultimately, the lawgiver himself killed him. Right? This was not the Father who gave the law. We know that from Acts, right? And we know it from Paul that the law was given by angels, by messengers, and the Jews were under a guardian, right? And this guardian was the Torah, and which came from Yahweh, right? So we know that. We know all these things. So Jesus nailed to the cross, died to the law, which proved, which showed that the law was in error. It was not necessary. It was an error. It's not true. Okay, so he nailed it to the cross. It died. So we died. So those who follow the law, the Torah, seeing Christ, believing him, what he says, and having a life built around that, around the Torah, seeing that the Torah is dead or useless or powerless or something that doesn't work, we die with it, right? So that's why Paul said that we died to the law, right? When we believe in Christ, because Christ nailed it to the cross, right? So are you getting the idea now? So that's the sacrifice. And it's about truth. It's not about a blood sacrifice, like a ritual that he had to, offer his blood to this bloodthirsty God. No. Although in ancient times, the gods, the deities of ancient man seem to have wanted this. So it was man's idea to create this system, It was like an oppression. If there were really gods in the past who demanded the best of everything, the firstborn of their best cattle, the best, that's going to cause a poor quality life. When you spend all of your days, all of your hours afraid, that's going to inhibit the growth of your reason and logic, right? Always afraid. You're going to always be in a fight or flight state. Okay, so you're not going to develop your reasoning because of that. So it was a very oppressive state that they were in, you know. So that's why the prophecy states that he's going to free, to break the chains, to make the blind see, right? So those terminologies, when we read them now, the New Testament, when it says that Jesus did an acceptable and pleasing sacrifice, it's going to give you a new meaning now. It's no longer about blood sacrifice and ritual sacrifice. It's going to be about a person, in the person of God Himself, God's Son, coming to humanity as a human being, living completely under the limits of humanity, and added to that the Torah and the environment that created. He put himself under that in order to free people, in order to show people, by dying, by suffering, to reveal to people the truth about God. And what does that mean? That's an acceptable and pleasing sacrifice, right? So now we understand why we are encouraged through that imagery, through that picture, through that word, how to live life, right? In service to other people, right? Because life is not easy. So now you understand that this is not a ritualistic sacrifice. This was a sacrifice, like how you would say it right now, right? When everything is against you, and you have to rescue someone from manipulation, and you have to go there, and the only way to show that person that the reality is not what she came to believe, or he came to believe, because of someone else's manipulation. And you know that the only way to break that is to show that you, as a God, don't hate that person by receiving all their blows, right? Even dying for the person, dying under their power without doing anything, without retaliation, right? Without defense. Do you understand what that means? I hope you can see it. Because we've been taught that God is so great that when Adam and Eve desired knowledge and wisdom, desired to be independent thinking people, to actually be who they were created to be, they were punished, and God hated them. That's what we've been taught. But then when we look at Jesus and what He did and how He suffered for our sake, right? So are you seeing it now? Are you seeing when I say He suffered for our sake, right? He put Himself under that, through that, so we can see that God can take anything we throw at Him, including desiring to be wise, right? He can turn anything. He can take anything. He can make everything beautiful, right? So I hope that's helpful to someone out there who is wondering, who's been, somehow, you kind of get this feeling of being detached. You think this is so stupid. because your spirit knows that God is greater than what most teach, and He doesn't need this blood sacrifice and stuff. Somehow it becomes stupid, you know. This is not what's been taught to us. May not be intentionally to deceive us, but it's just this lack of understanding, you know, lack of idea what God is, who God is, and our person, you know, our who we are as creatures, you know. They want to the message actually that's been taught to us is very stupid. You know, they want to oppress us, put us down, and make us, you know, it's really in a low level thinking. Right? This is not to slight them. It's true, right? We can talk about that more, but I think you get the point. So again, he did sacrifice, but how what that means is completely different. He came here, put himself under all this stuff, teaching, showing people, and then ultimately for the entire world to know who God really is and how He looks at us. He hanged on the cross, and He willingly put Himself in that position. You know, He has the power not to do that. He could have come here with His angels, then just declared Himself, I love you. But that's going to be too scary. We're not going to understand. It had to be an experience with us, you know, and by us, and He cooperating, you know, to show not only that He can take punishment, but He can actually use this evil for good. He can actually transform through our ignorance. He can actually guide that ignorance to create something great, something beautiful, right? So that's what it is. The truth shall set you free. That's what salvation is. First in the mind, then we have the faith now. By believing what He said, who He claimed to be, everything makes sense, right? That's the only way you can see the message, if you believe Him. He's the Son of God and stuff. Because if He's not, He's just a prophet that was hanged on the cross. That means nothing. It's just another prophet dead, right? But if it was God who died, who allowed Himself to be beaten, bruised, mocked, rejected, you know, all of that, some denominations think that that's the reason why God is angry at us, because we hated Him, because we turned away from Him, because we do not believe Him. That's what religion says. So now we have to suffer now and do all of these things because God is angry, because we reject Him. It's stupid. Okay? So Jesus came, and if you believe that He is God who died and rose again, then your eyes are open. Then you're saved. You are rescued. You're redeemed. You're put back in the correct mindset, right? But then the world has to go through the things that it has to go through, because at the core something's wrong with us. Something's wrong with me, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with other people. There's always something missing. That's what sin means. There's always something missing. There's always a limitation. There's always something that we can't grasp. Sometimes this is the vital things we need to have. We should have grasped before things got out of control, right? So this add to this greed and all this stuff, especially in what's happening now in our world. This is going to reach, a certain point. All of this stupidity, all this craziness that we are naturally able to, do will culminate to something. It's going to explode in our face. Okay, so we're going to need someone to rescue us from this. So that's another kind of salvation, right? Another step in the redemption of the world, of creation, right? Then there's the final one, the recreation of everything, the restoration of everything back to its normal place. So I hope that helps. It's insightful, and I pray. This is a prayer for those who have been watching and interested. If you find this video, pray. Okay, ask the Father. No, I didn't come to this. I don't willingly create these messages. It just comes to me. I don't care. I don't care about this. I mean, I care, but I don't care about, trying to be, trying to refute someone. But, it has messed me up, And I think people are also having unnecessary struggles in their life because of wrong doctrines, a wrong idea about God leads to wrong action towards other people, the way we are, and the more we know God, the more our eyes are opened, the more we become better. Hopefully, by the Spirit of truth, we will attain this, to live peaceably with each other, and to be more productive, than destructive. So hopefully that's enough for now, and I'll see you in the next video.